Hi, good afternoon. My name is Mike Thune and I'm a fire information officer with the Dolan Fire. And today we're bringing you a live update about the Dolan Fire. I want to introduce a couple of folks here on the incident that are actually our incident commanders here in a moment. We know many of you are watching live from Facebook, whether you're watching with one person or others. One of the things is go ahead and you can add your questions into the feed. We did receive a number of questions from folks beforehand via email and also through our call center. So we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can in the time that we have. In order to get started, we're going to go ahead and introduce our incident commander, Mike Minton, for an operational update.
Hello everyone, Mike Minton. I'm the incident commander with California Team 2. We're the National Interagency Incident Management Team assigned to the Dolan Fire. And I'll give you a quick operational update of what's happening on the incident. You can see the map behind me, or you can refer to the map that is attached in the link here. I'll start with the north end of the fire and what we're calling Division Alpha. Right now we have ground-based firefighting resources working on where we're essentially we have topography in our favor to be able to stop fire spread and ensure that we get some containment lines achieved on the north end. Right now the fire is still south of Anderson Peak, which would be located here on the map, which is a location where there's a lot of infrastructure for communications and FAS that we're aware of and concerned about. So far that looks to be very protectable, and fire has not yet impacted that. As we progress down along the east side of the fire, most of all of the fire edge through both divisions Foxtrot and X-Ray is pretty well slowed down and is confined to the west side of the North Coast Ridge. Our objective is to try to maintain and not see further growth deeper into the Montana wilderness if we can avoid it. Primary purpose for that is so that we can shorten duration, conditions associated to the production of smoke and so forth, which could make the incident longer term and more impactful to the airshed. So that's our objective on the east side. About a half mile to a quarter mile north of the Lucia area, where we know we have a community at risk in there. Firefighters have been using dozers, engines, and hand crews to check fire spread and look for the best opportunity on the topography with ridges and roads to be able to create a final fire perimeter down there. So that effort's still underway. There is some difficult terrain in there and some tough pieces to figure out. And while we do have resources engaged in that, it's a somewhat limited number down there. And then, of course, on the west side of the fire, the objective is to keep it east of Highway 1. Lots of steep slopes and rollout material with burning debris coming off the hillside and getting onto the highway. We have had so far one small slop over occur onto the west side of the highway, which was contained, but we continue to have concerns about that, and we'll have resources moving up and down this section, Highway 1, to try to prevent any fire from being on the west side or the coast side of the highway. I'll talk real quickly about where we're at with some closures and some things that impact you all with both evacuations and closures. So we'll start with the first evacuation order that we have is up in the Partington Ridge area. We have communities up there, somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 or so homes and or structures, and so we do have a hard evacuation order in Lucia, which includes The Hermitage, we also have a hard evacuation order for those areas due to the imminent nature of fire spread both to the north and to the south in the event that a fire is progressing at a rate that we're not able to keep up with. So those orders are hard and in place. The additional closure would be on Highway 1. That closure is going to need to stay in place for public safety purposes, also due to the fact that we still have fire risk associated to burning debris coming down off of the highway. And so it's a public safety closure and also an access issue for firefighting apparatus and resources on Highway 1. And then the last to talk about would be the area closure for the Padres National Forest in the Ventana Wilderness and parts of the General Forest that surround those roads that would potentially access the fire area from proximate locations are all closed at this point, and that forest closure order is in effect, and we expect it will remain in effect for a while to come here. So that's a quick thumbnail sketch of what's happening operationally, and I want to go ahead and bring in and introduce our unified commander, our local fire chief, Matt Harris, who's the chief for Big Sur Fire, and introduce Matt and have him maybe give you a little bit further intel on his efforts the last few days.
Well, thank you, Chief Minton, and I'd like to thank the incident management team too for coming to Big Sur and providing such excellent leadership and support for this incident, and also the collaboration with Big Sur Fire to mitigate this incident. It is going to be a long duration incident, and I ask again, community, we remain patient with the process and the influx of resources which we are searching far and wide for. Chief Minton gave a very good update of the fire. I do want to reinforce the road closures are in place and the evacuation orders are in place, and that while you do not have to leave your residence, if you do leave, you will not be allowed to come back. So I'd like to make that clear to the community, clear up that question. At this point, I know there's a few questions from the community that we'd like to go ahead and answer together.
So as we're prepping for a few of those questions from the community, I will just share with everyone. I think most people are well enough connected to know what's happening throughout the state of California with wildfires right now. There are multiple large incidents occurring both in Northern California and Southern California, and we have incident command teams from other states and geographic locations of the country that have come to California to help join that effort for the management of some of these more complex large wildfires. Resources, have been coming from out of state, and I'm we'll continue to see a surge of that occurring, and so there are thousands of capable complement of firefighting resources here, to the extent that we feel fairly lucky to have some of what we do have, and we think that there's certain portions of this fire we can be really successful with our control objectives based on the mix.
Virtually, I know this is not what the community is used to, and I thank you for your patience for bearing with us. The intention is to move incident base up to Pfeiffer State Park, which is familiar to most of you, but there will still not be the formal community meetings where everybody will come and join. This will be the new format, and we hope it works. We're trying this new today as well, so thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Chief, for the updates and the answers to many of these questions that we're seeing already coming in. One of the questions that we're getting is about actually weather and what the weather looks like as we're going forward, especially as there's additional fire weather watches and red flag warnings in the area, and what that means for the firefighting efforts.
So yeah, so we have what's called an incident meteorologist assigned to us for this fire, is IMET, and so that IMET has been doing much more localized weather forecasting for us, so that we can understand how local weather and topographical conditions that influence weather will be affecting that more immediate fire area. That IMET also takes a look at the more general forecast and coordinates with other incident meteorologists throughout the state to take a look at larger scale weather impacts that could affect us. And so, as most folks are aware, we've had a combination of fire weather watches and red flag warnings, which are indicators for wildland fire staff that current existing fires out on the landscape could see either wind and or low relative humidity, high fuel temperature conditions that could change the burning conditions on the current incidents, and or they could be thunderstorms that have lightning associated to them, which could lead to new starts. And so with the current forecast, we are looking at the remnants of Hurricane Genevieve, which will bring atmospheric moisture and instability. That instability will likely lead to, with thunderstorms, what we expect to see is the high potential for dry lightning as we navigate in through Sunday and Monday, and then as we get later into Monday and Tuesday, some of those dry thunderstorms could come with a little more moisture. And so the outflow winds from thunderstorms could have some unwanted consequences on our fire. The atmospheric instability may help to clear the smoke out, which would improve visibility for any aviation efforts that we have underway, but could also help to promote and fuel fire growth. So we have concerns with that. Also, dry lightning that could equate to new starts in the area, and new starts could begin to stretch out an already thin wildland fire response with our engines, crews, and other ground-based firefighting assets. So mostly not great news to hear the forecast that we're faced with right now. The only positive aspect of that is clearing some smoke out, which would be good for health purposes and to some extent visibility issues for us to be able to utilize aircraft a bit more. But overall, probably more of a negative outlook based on the current weather.
Thank you so much for that. Another question we're getting is, where can folks go to get information about evacuations? Is there places that they can sign up for information? What are some good places within the county to do that?
Sure. So the Monterey County Sheriff is handling all of our evacuation requests and orders. So Alert Monterey through OES is where I would suggest that you would go to get more information, and you can even sign up for alerts. Evacuation orders change, but they are the ones that have the information. That's the best place to go.
There's some questions that are coming in also about Highway 1 and about the closures, and maybe expanding a little bit about what's going on in Highway 1 and why there are the closures in place.
So, like Chief Minton said, the Highway 1 closures for public safety and firefighter movement. We have active fire right down to Highway 1, and that's one of our control objectives, to keep it east of Highway 1. We have active firefighting going on along Highway 1, and we also want to make sure that it stays, rollout doesn't jump the highway, which we've already had numerous. And generally for public safety, we keep the road closures far enough out that what locals are still there can move about safely amongst the fire apparatus and such that are trying to get to the fire line. But we really need to keep people out. And again, the evacuation orders for the local communities, the local like Partington and Hermitage and Lucia, for example, once you leave, order is in place, you will not be allowed to come back.
Thank you so much for that, Chief. One of the other questions we got is what are some things that people can do to help support the firefighting efforts? What are things that they can do themselves to help us? We're getting asked questions, which is super appreciated from the community. Are we getting enough resources? Are we getting enough things? But what can they do to help us?
Yeah, so there's a number of things. So for those that are not directly affected, and what I mean by that is within the evacuation ordered area, continue to prepare yourselves. Continue to prepare for fire in your neighborhood, on your property, and that's the message that I've been bringing for many, many months now, and actually years. And then as far as support, there's a number of ways you can contact info@bigsurfire.org, which can administrative staff at our station can help direct you to appropriate venues to help.
Yeah, and then, the only other thing I would add is one of the things that is extremely helpful to us in our efforts out here, if folks can be connected to warnings and abiding by evacuation orders and steering clear of highways and roadways that are impacted or are closed by the incident. The less traffic that we have associated to those areas, that we need that space to navigate and work safely in and do our jobs, which is protecting lives and property out there. The more space we can be afforded to do that is super helpful to us. It can be a distraction of both resources and effort and energy if we're having to deal with people being in places that they shouldn't be. So that's always a big help.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I want to come back into the screen so everybody can see me. But again, this is Mike Thune, the Fire Information Officer with the Dolan Fire, and I just want to thank both Chiefs Times as their incident commanders for all their support and all the information they're giving our crews out there and all the information out to the public. We're still going to monitor some questions that come up on Facebook, through email, through our phone systems, so please keep sending those questions in. We're going to be looking at doing these more often, so stay tuned for our morning updates, our evening updates. We're going to be posting this stuff on Facebook. We'll have the video up as well afterwards. So we're going to go ahead and end today. I know both these gentlemen have a very busy